Are we about to witness the rebirth of a legend within a team that has been looking for redemption for more than a decade? Can Hamilton turn Ferrari into a real contender, or will this be the most frustrating chapter of his career? Lewis Hamilton and Ferrari. Two names that have left an indelible brand in the history of Formula One, but for the first time in 2025, share the same narrative, even under construction. This union represents much more than a simple contractual association. It is a clash of cultures, philosophies, and expectations. For Hamilton, a pilot whose sports identity was forged in the ranks of McLaren and consolidated as a legend under the technological wing of Mercedes, this new stage in Maranello has implied a radical change, both professional and emotional. Since his arrival in Ferrari, the seven-time world champion has had to deal with a completely different environment from the one who was accustomed. Ferrari's internal structure is known for its complexity, with a decision-making of many times fragmented between technical departments, career directors, and corporate leadership. This contrasts with the millimeter precision and the monochromatic approach that characterized Mercedes during his dominant era. And this difference is reflected in the car. SF25 is not a docile car. It is fast in very specific conditions but unpredictable in most. Hamilton has had to deal with a machine that seems to constantly challenge his pilot instinct, especially at the entrance and exit of curve, where the rear train instability has taken away the necessary confidence to attack. The most fascinating of this process is not the technical struggle, but human adaptation. Hamilton, a pilot who in the past has been reluctant to change his style, has now been forced to do so. He has started studying Leclerc's data, his teammate, not as a way of competing but as a learning tool. It has begun to modify its transition between accelerator and brake, a key area where Ferrari has a different philosophy. And in that act of sports humility, he has made it clear that he has not come to Maranello only to win, but to transform and transform. But that adaptation process has been brutally exposed in the first races of the season. In Australia, his debut with Ferrari was marked by frustration, a misguided strategy, a difficult car in rain, and a constant battle against a performance that simply did not reflect his level. In China, however, he showed signs of progress. He led a sprint classification and met again with sensations that he did not live since 2021. Those flashes of brilliance remind us who Hamilton is really when the car responds. And even amid the inconsistency, its determination has been palpable in each session, in each comment, in each decision. It is in that emotional context where Austria becomes more than a stop on the calendar. It is the time when all these emotions, adjustments, and previous failures can converge into a single objective: demonstrate that this union can work. For Hamilton, the opportunity to show that he is still the best pilot of his generation, even when circumstances do not favor him. For Ferrari, the hope that the commitment to a veteran champion gives fruit before the pressure becomes unbearable. And for fans, the beginning of a story that, with a single good result, can turn towards redemption. The Austrian Grand Prix is, by nature, a scenario where the masks fall. The Red Bull Ring, with its sequence of short and fast curves, straight that punishes aerodynamic efficiency, and braking that demand maximum stability of the rear train, is one of those paths that does not forgive. Here, errors are amplified, weak points are exposed mercilessly, and strengths are rewarded with surgical clarity. For that reason, this appointment is presented as the definitive proof to measure the true state of the relationship between Hamilton and the SF25. Until now, Ferrari has had a clear season. The car has shown speed in concrete sectors, but lacks a global consistency that allows to aspire to victories without depending on extraordinary errors or extraordinary conditions. What happened in Canada, with a rebound by Mercedes thanks to a specific evolution of the W15, and the constant solidity of McLaren from the start in Australia, has pushed Ferrari to an uncomfortable position, to be the third best team in a category where only the first matters. Austria, then, is not just one more race. It is a real-time verification of whether the aerodynamic and suspension improvements introduced in the last large awards have had effect beyond the theory. Internal simulations point to a more predictable behavior of the rear axle, but that prediction needs track validation. And this is where Hamilton enters. His driving style, very sensitive to the car response in braking and curve transition, could be the perfect thermometer. If the SF25 manages to offer you a platform with confidence from the first free on Friday, we could see a qualitative leap in the race rhythm, something that Ferrari desperately needs to consolidate its position in the construction championship. In addition, competitive pressure is not less. McLaren not only leads the championship, he has demonstrated an operational and strategic efficiency that has left behind the past. His two pilots are in full form, with Norris leading the World Cup and Piastri showing an almost surgical consistency. Mercedes, meanwhile, has left behind the lagging equipment image to be placed as a serious contender to second place, especially with an increasingly confident George Russell. Red Bull, even with his internal problems and the recent pilot change, cannot be discarded in a circuit that bears his name. Therefore, for Ferrari, it is not simply running. It is a matter of competitive survival. This Grand Prix is also an opportunity to measure Hamilton's emotional and psychological impact on the team. The engineers know it, the mechanics feel it, and the directive observes it. If Hamilton yields, the team believes. His experience, his ability to extract rhythm from difficult conditions, and his role as a de facto leader within the garage are intangible that can make a difference in a weekend where every detail counts. Austria not only requires the pilot but also to the environment. The execution has to be perfect. The strategy impeccable. The decisions in boxes without margin of error. Because another stumble at this point of the season could mean goodbye to any realistic aspiration. Austria is the thermometer because it reveals what cannot be disguised with narrative. And if Hamilton and Ferrari want to demonstrate that their project goes beyond nostalgia or illusion, this is the time. The paddock observes. The rivals press. And history hopes to be written. There are weekends in Formula One that, beyond the points table, define narratives. And the 2025 Grand Prix has all the ingredients to become that symbolic turning point that marks a before and after, not only in the season, but in the modern history of Ferrari and Lewis Hamilton. The pressure surrounding this event is not abstract. It is tangible, cumulative, and loaded with strategic, sports, and emotional implications. If Ferrari fails in Austria, erosion will be silent but devastating. The Italian media, historically relentless with the Scuderia, are already beginning to filter questions about the technical direction and the effectiveness of Loic Serra, the main head of the SF25. Internally, it has been said that the structural adjustments made after the Canada GP were specifically designed to perform in circuits such as the Red Bull Ring, with low aerodynamic load and high traction requirement. If even here the car is competitive, the technical credibility of the entire decisions chain in Ferrari will be compromised. In a team like Ferrari that is not forgiven. For Hamilton, the panorama is just as a critic. Although he has shown signs of increasing adaptation and has already achieved outstanding podiums and turns, he has not yet had that great full weekend to do justice to his reputation. His critics have not taken to emerge. Some accuse him of having crossed Ferrari only for extra sports reasons, for looking for a nostalgic legacy rather than a competitive project. But a triumph, or at least a dominant performance in Austria, would silence that noise immediately. Moreover, he would consolidate his role as a catalyst for change in Maranello, the pilot who arrived not only to compete, but to transform from the inside. At the championship level, the effects would also be immediate. Ferrari urgently needs to settle as the second-best team of the year, because McLaren has already begun to build a gap that will not be easy to close. If Mercedes, with Russell and the surprising debut of Antonelli, continues to add solid, Ferrari could see that second place staggers. Each point in Austria, therefore, is strategic gold. And for Hamilton, every good session is a political statement. Towards their engineers, towards managers, towards fans, towards the media that doubt their level. We should not underestimate the psychological effect either. A good result in Austria could be the spark that turns on the internal morals of the team. When a star pilot wins or leads a weekend, the atmosphere in the factory changes. Development is accelerated, relations between departments are consolidated, the political burden of leaders is lightened. In an environment as pressured as Ferrari, performance generates stability. And at this point of the season, that stability is more valuable than anything else. The immediate future of this alliance between Lewis Hamilton and Ferrari will not be played throughout the championship, but in key quotes like this. Austria is not simply another career. It is an emotional, tactical, and media crossroads. And how it is resolved this weekend will depend if this ambitious project continues to grow or begins to crack inside. The clock progresses. The grill is ready. The world observes. And the future literally writes one round at the same time. The history of Formula One is full of moments in which a single redefined career narrative changes professional trajectories and branding points that only over time we understand in its true magnitude. Austria 2025 has the potential to be one of those moments. For some, it is simply the 10th date of the calendar. For others, it is the border between frustration and redemption. The Hamilton-Ferrari combination is not a conventional bet. It is a fusion of legacy, ambition, and risk. And what is decided this weekend can consolidate the union as one of the most successful of the century, Or is one more in the list of failed alliances in Maranello? Beyond the final result, what is at stake is perception. Because in Formula One, not only the points matter, but the message that is sent. But there is also a palpable risk. If the performance is again erratic, if the operational errors reappear, if the car does not respond as expected, the question will intensify.